You know, maybe 1% of the, black Americans don't hate everything and everyone, but the rest of them are predisposed toward
1%. Dog, he's just a Nazi, man. He's just a gay Nazi. He's literally just Ernst Röhm. Maybe 1% of black people don't hate everything and everyone. He's just a coked out, fake ex-homosexual, gay Nazi Ernst Röhm type. That's literally all he is now, man. The Milo Destiny debate, man. Dude, I'm jealous of Destiny because he's back in the States. I'm out here doing journalism, which is cool and everything. This means I can't go to these conferences. I can't go speak at any of these things. Not that I necessarily be invited to all of these, but I have been invited to speaking events. I haven't been invited to some stuff organized by the conservatives. They try to invite me on as a liberal voice. I've been invited to some modern day debate stuff that I can't go do in person. I can only do stuff online when it comes to interacting with people back in the States. It really sucks. It really hurts my growth too. So I'm jealous of it. And Destiny recently had a debate back and forth with Milo Yiannopoulos that got super, super, super personal. Milo Yiannopoulos was supposed to debate him on Christian nationalism, but from the clips that I've seen, it seems that the man was intoxicated. I know Nick Fuentes, who was working with Milo Yiannopoulos on the Yeet campaign, alleges that Milo Yiannopoulos basically pops Percocets. I don't know if that's true or not. Who knows? They're all turning on each other over there and outing information on each other. Who knows if it's real or not? He made some other allegations too about stuff said on campaign during 2016 about Milo interacting with young minors and stuff, but he didn't have any evidence to provide evidence for this stuff, so that I can't really say anything about it. But he looks intoxicated. He looks like he's on something. I don't know. He's not on his A game. He's not on his A game, that's for sure. And he starts going after Destiny's family. He starts going after Destiny's kid. Starts saying you're gonna like make sure he's gay, and then Destiny like takes off the gloves in a way that I haven't seen from Destiny in a while. And honestly, he could have gone harder. From what I've heard about the rest of the debate, this was basically a scalping. So I wanted to watch it on stream with you guys. Somebody in chat asked me, if I could ask Milo anything, what would I ask him? I would ask him, if he's a reformed homosexual, why does he still spend so much time with his husband? Anyway, let's continue.
Name one.
The University of Texas.
Okay, so
we didn't think you'd actually have an example.
I have a list.
They agree on the color of the sky.
Right.
Well, the first,
That's
the thing that's most interesting about Milo Yiannopoulos, and you need to know this. Number one, he's a quote-unquote reformed homosexual, and number two, the reason he was canceled and he had to become a reformed homosexual is because on the Drunken Peasants podcast, he tried to justify priests having a sexual relationship with young boys, Catholic priests, and older men having inappropriate relationship with young boys. He tried to justify it. Whether he was doing it because he was projecting from his own childhood experiences that he shouldn't have had or what, doesn't really matter. He was still trying to justify it. And ever since then, it's just been kind of like a downward spiral until he came out and announced that he was a reformed homosexual, even though he's still spending so much time with his supposedly ex-husband. And he like recorded a video where he threw his ring into the water, but he like edited in a bloop afterwards. He didn't really throw it into the water. And so now this is the Milo we have, debating for Christian nationalism as a reformed homosexual who on his off time sells statues of the Virgin Mary on far right Christian TV networks.
But I think you just made that up. If you didn't, please tell us what church it is, because that's not Catholic teaching.
Sure. One of the pairs I went to was...
Did you say you're not supposed to wear rosaries? Have you never been to Italy?
No, but I was a Catholic for like 16 years, and wearing a rosary was a big no-no. We got in big trouble in school when we did that. But
the answer to your question is race.
The funniest thing is I actually just made that up. I was seeing if he would actually try to talk his way through that, but I totally made that up. Thanks, Milo. We're not getting rid of cell phones. We're not putting women back in the kitchen. We're not getting rid of birth control. The internet's not going anywhere. We're not locking down our borders. You know, we live in a world today that is as much different from 1980 as 1980 was from the 1200s that, you know, Milo's so obsessed with. We need better conversations with people, better policies that we can advocate for, better things that we can talk about to move our people forward, rather than having people endlessly fracture and atomize themselves.
The question we're going to be answering today is, should Christian nationalism be the dominant governing ideology of America? We will have 10 minutes each of prepared opening statements, and then each of you guys will be able to...
My statement would be very clear. Secularism is great. It allows people of different religions to live next door by door, and means the government is not going to dictate to you your morality. It's not going to tell you what you can and can't do based upon their own personal religious beliefs. It should be guided by things that are physical, that we can test and show in the real world, not a book that is unprovable, in a relationship with God that is largely within a person's mind that is impossible to present IRL. Like, you can't really take that spiritual experience and test it and show it like in real life. And so demanding that the entire country abide by your religious sensibilities based upon something that you can't even prove is silly. It's really silly. If you want to live that way personally, then I love that America is a country that's free, where you can do that. But the idea that you should be forcing that upon others and making that government policy is silly. Definitely, since a lot of the teachings of Christian nationalism is going to lead to a lot of people like homosexuals, like Milo Yiannopoulos himself, who is LARPing as a quote-unquote reformed homosexual, who you can tell how sad he is. You can, just from the way he carries himself and how much he has fallen from grace. Even in his own circles that he's trying to recover his image in, is going to lead to them living less happy lives, not as their true selves, like Milo is currently doing, and showing to the world what it would be like if you just denied who you really are.
Go through 5 minutes of rebuttals each, and then I will ask 2 questions for each of you, and we'll rotate between you guys. You'll each have 5 minutes to answer the question I've directed towards you, and the other person will have 3 minutes to respond. And then we will have a 30-minute Q&A and crossfire, where you guys will have questions from the audience, and you will also then be allowed to sort of go back and forth between the two of you. So you can kind of have fun with it. It'll be a complete free-for-all. So after that, we'll go for 5 minutes each for closings, and you guys are allowed to have prepared openings, and I will give you guys hand signals throughout so that we're all on time. And
I've told Milo kind of like rambles, so what I'm going to do for Milo segments, if he rambles for too long, I'm just going to start speeding up his segments. Destiny himself talks fast, so I don't really need to do it for him.
So that everything is running smoothly. So let's get started with the openings. It will be 10 minutes each, and we are going to start with Milo.
Is that indigo?
My hair?
Yes.
We call it blue over here.
Okay. I have to give you some credit for having the cojones to show up in Tennessee barely a month after the bullet-ridden bodies of children have been buried.
Oh my God. That's how he started? Really? How melodramatic. You had the gall to enter a state where a shooting happened, where a trans person did a shooting. Oh, really? That's weird. Because if he entered any other state, okay, he could find places where white people or other people who have a similar ideological composition as Milo Yiannopoulos have done shootings as well, right? Would it be brave of him to go there? Get out of here. This is being melodramatic.
As a sort of representative for a culture that did it, and
the police still have not released the motive of the shooter. We have no evidence that it was the culture that Destiny is a part of for some reason, I guess, that caused the shooting. It could be mental health problems completely unrelated. We don't know. But you know, when it's an unarmed black man getting shot by the cops, until we have every single specific detail, don't say anything. It's a responsible thing to do. But when it's a trans person, not when it's like, you know, probably a white national or something, when it's a trans person, just make assumptions right off the bat. Don't even wait for the cops to release the report. The same cops we were waiting for all the information about when they shoot an unarmed black man. Okay, just knowing the dynamics here, just trying to understand them.
Offering anything but condolences and sympathy. I think it's disgusting. I think it's shameful.
Dude, it's weird. You think Destiny wouldn't offer condolences and sympathy to the families killed because Destiny won't come here and say Christian nationalism should rule the country? That means he's disrespecting the families of those killed. Get out of here.
How dare you?
Dude, what a pussy. I'm sorry, man. What a pussy. This worrywart, moral finger-waving loser. I'm sorry, man. Right off the bat, trying to literally take the corpses of these children, just throw them at Destiny before he's even said anything. He didn't even open his opening statement. You don't even know what his position is on it, and he's already wagging his moral finger at him.
How dare you show up here offering anything but sympathy? Because...
I'm sorry, he has to be intoxicated. There's no way he thinks he looks good.
You know, I think... I should stand or something. We're familiar with what happened in Tennessee. We're less familiar with the reasons why. But the reason was that...
Dude, he's wasted. He is wasted. Also, what is he wearing?
Any given time in society, they're about...
What is he wearing? I don't know what the hell he's supposed to be. I don't know what that is, man.
20% of people who are just nuts.
Dude, his hair was so much better when it was dyed partially blonde. Dude, de-gayification has really hit him hard, man.
And those people will glom on to whatever the fad is for people who are nuts. So the current nuts is trans. You can see in the social trends when you plot anorexia and bulimia, which was the big thing when I was growing up, against the new nuts. That there's basically about 1 in 5 people who are just not really all there and will kind of do whatever. But when you hand those people, those unstable and dangerous people...
To be clear, 1 in 5 people are not trans. I don't know where he's getting this number from.
People a victimhood script. When you give them a license to commit violence in the name of their supposed identities, instead of giving them the treatment and the love and the prayers that they need, you turn those people into killers. You turn those people into...
Dude, it's so weird for him to be on stage talking about people who are not all there while he's like twitching out, either drunk as hell, high as hell, who knows on what, Percocet or otherwise, and like throwing the bodies of dead kids at Destiny, while he is talking about being a reformed homosexual who literally prayed the gay away, and he's talking about other people not being all there. Yeah, okay, the irony.
Time bombs. And there used to be something in America that would protect against that. It was Christianity. I think it's shameful that anybody would show up so soon after a tragedy caused by the kind of ideologies that you support and do anything but offer sympathy and condolences and celebrate the ideology that has protected us against this sort of thing for so long. It's outside the scope of our evening this evening to prove or disprove the truth of Christianity or Christ or whatever. But I'll make a few points. There is no America without Christ. And the reason for that is that this is an intrinsically and fundamentally Christian nationalist country, by which we mean it's built into the architecture of the nation. There's no getting away from it. You can lie about it. You can pridefully claim that, you know, you can be good people without Christ. You can't. You're just inheriting a system of good and evil from the culture in which you grew up.
Be clear, he's talking about how Christ is the thing that makes you a good person. Later in this interview, he will start going after Destiny's children, Destiny's child, and Destiny's wife for debate points, and he's going to be lecturing about what makes a good and not good person. Very interesting.
Which accords with the natural law. America was founded, as Adams told us, with a constitution that is wholly unsuited to the governance.
I said Destiny's child. Okay, get it out of your system. Get it out of your system.
Of anyone but a moral and religious people. And when he said religious, he meant Christian, although he himself was wandered through various different kinds of heresy. What Adams said was that this country is, that its founding documents, that its founding architecture the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, were wholly and fundamentally unsuited to the governance of anything but a moral and religious people. Do you think that America is comprised of a moral and religious people today? Obviously it is not. And what he meant specifically was Christianity, because the way that America is set up outsources morality to Christianity. And without it, it doesn't work, because jury trials don't work when people vote with race instead of conscience and truth.
You shouldn't be voting with race at a jury trial, and you don't need to be a Christian to not vote based upon race, but to vote based upon who is guilty and not guilty of committing said murder or crime or whatever it is.
Society doesn't work when people don't obey contracts, don't obey...
You can have a legal system to enforce contracts. That's what we have civil courts for.
...their word when they're oath breakers. The architecture of America rests...
It's like there's not... It's like we can't point... It's like he says this as if we can't point to systems all around the world that are like widely secular societies that have functioning judiciaries, civil societies, civil courts, legal court. Like I don't know what he says. This as if there's not a waft of societies we could point to and be like, look, that society works.
Fundamentally on a bedrock of Christianity, without which the entire thing falls apart, and that's exactly what's happening. And you don't have to take my word for it. You don't even have to take Adams's word for it, but one of your own Supreme Court justices, somebody who was famously left-wing, Rehnquist, I think it was. Can't bother to look it up, but he said that everything in America presupposes the legal system, the social system, the government. Everything in America presupposes the existence of the Judeo-Christian God. Without that, it all comes tumbling down. And without that, it is coming tumbling down. And without that, we're not able to give people who have terrible sicknesses and weaknesses and defects the help that they need. Instead, we hand them victimhood scripts, and they shoot up schools, they shoot up churches, whether they are young white guys on antidepressants or whether they're transgender people who are told that it's white Christians are responsible.
Again, Nick Fuentes says he does the Percocet. I'm just, you know, rumor, but I don't know why I would lie about it.
Responsible for all of their miseries. It is Christianity.
What Nick Fuentes said specifically was that not only does Milo take Percocets to deal with the difficulty of being a born-again Christian, no longer homosexual, but that he offered Nick Fuentes Percocets.
That keeps us nice to each other, that keeps us being good to one another. And if you toss it out, as happened in 1776 here, you have a really big problem on your hands, because, and I'm going to say something very radical and difficult to say in Tennessee of all places, there are freedoms afforded to Americans that are too radical and too great and too daring without the insulation of Christianity. The First and Second Amendments don't work unless everyone's Christian. They don't work, and they're not working. They're not functioning. You can't give crazy atheists guns. You can't let shameless liars say whatever they want about other people in public without consequence. There's a sort of unwritten rule that sits behind everything in America, and it is that these are all the things you get to do because we know that you can handle it. We know that you can be trusted with this because you love God, because you respect life, because you won't take other people's lives, because you'll keep your word. Without that, the First and Second Amendments become a sort of license to abuse one another or to kill one another. They become a license to lie. They become a license to murder. They become too much freedom, because there is such a thing. And without an underpinning moral architecture, this country doesn't work.
You know how I know he's on something is because the way he talks is very similar right now, is somewhat similar to how I talk when I'm really, really high. Like, I've smoked a ton of pot, and I'm trying to like talk and make a coherent point, where like every like 5 or 6 words I like have to take like a 3-second break to like just figure out the next word in the sentence. It's like I could feel, I don't know if it's pot for him or what it is, but dude, he's on something.
And it's not working. And since this country has fallen away from God, the Christian God, this country has begun to fall apart.
You mean in Minecraft, right? Amsterdam. I was in Amsterdam recently where it's legal, okay? So I would never, ever, ever, ever smoke pot in an area where it was not 100% legal, because I am a man of the law. I'm a moral man, a man of the law.
And that's why all of this terrible shit is happening. That's why all the awful stuff on TV is going on. It's why you can no longer trust people to keep their words if you don't know them. It's why everybody keeps voting with their skin color, or their sexuality or gender or whatever bollocks it is today. Because they're not unified under Christ, because they're not one under Christ, because they're not brothers and sisters in Christ.
When America was the most Christian, we had the highest rates of Christianity. When we were like closest to the Christian roots of this country that he's talking about, the roots that were based in, was when we had when we had slavery. It's when we had higher rates of racism and discrimination, higher rates of lynching, right? When he's talking about the society he's talking about was actively worse in so many different ways that he's just going to notably ignore when talking about how we need to great return to that Christian society. If you ask the Klan what they believe in, they are a white nationalist Christian organization. That was very important to their ideology. They don't accept Jews. They don't even accept Catholics. I think they might have changed that very recently because their membership is very low, but they're very specific. They don't accept Muslims. Like they are a religious organization.
It doesn't matter if you agree with the literal truth of Christianity or not. The founders did, and they made a country for people who did. And if you don't agree with that, or you don't like God, or you don't see why too much freedom is leading us all to hate and kill each other, and you don't appreciate that we should not...
To be clear, this is all Destiny should have to say. This British man came here to Tennessee to tell you, Americans, that you have too much freedom. I know he wants to revert back to the past, but he doesn't revert back to, you know, the 1800s. He wants to revert back to 1750. That's all he has to say. Brit Bronger out, and then debate's over. Then debate's over, the crowd will riot, and they'll throw him out of the country.
Not only restore Christianity in culture, but require it in public life. You should go to Canada. You should go somewhere else where there's a moral architecture built into the law. But here, it doesn't work without God. And when you don't have him, when instead people replace prayer and the rituals of the church with antidepressants, with compound interest, with...
dude, I was thinking about going to church this Sunday, but don't worry, I got some antidepressants. They serve the same purpose, no worries.
Games and drink and drugs and fornication, kind of thing he does with his wife, you know, offering her around town like she's common property. America doesn't work when we behave that way, because we'll all just end up murdering each other. That's all.
Destiny, you have 10 minutes.
This is terrible.
Yeah, okay. It's not every day I'm the progressive. Oh,
He's
what?
so drunk, man.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Okay. I'm not used to arguing for more
That looks like water, man, but that's Smirnov.
freedoms against conservatives on stage, but I guess that's where we're at right now with the conservative movement, or whatever part of the conservative movement this is. Today, we've got viewers gathered from all across the world tuning in to a debate between me and Milo, where Milo is going to argue that we should turn the USA into an isolated, authoritarian, zealously religious country. I think that technology is the Pandora's box that has changed this country and this world forever, and I don't think we're ever going back to the days of public squares and mail service by horse. Cultural exchange is happening, whether you like it or not, quite literally at the speed of light. Even right now, potentially hundreds of thousands or even millions of people around the world are listening to me and Milo have this debate. The only way to stop this type of cultural exchange is through the militant authoritarianism that Milo is talking about on this stage. That might be through his being against the First Amendment, that might be against his taking away of the Second Amendment, and that might be through the institution of a state religion. This means the destruction of our freedom of speech, our ability to produce media, satire, and comedy, and our ability to communicate openly on the social media platforms we've all, unfortunately, grown addicted to.
Burns is a...
After Milo gets his way and abolishes the First Amendment, is he going to be the one deciding who we can or cannot make fun of on Twitter? Is the world really going to return to how it was before birth control, before...
Well, no, maybe that's the plan for Milo, right? People won't stop calling him like mean names on Twitter and bullying him because of that drunken peasants clip. So now he has to gain authoritarian control of the First Amendment so he can stop people from making fun of him.
Women had the right to work, before gay people were allowed to get married, before we were allowed the ability to freely worship whatever God we wanted or abstain from worship altogether. I reckon that we cannot close Pandora's box. Christian nationalism, as it stands today, isn't even a coherent ideology. Its proponents will argue whether there's an ethnic component, whether one needs to be Catholic or not, and whether one needs to even be a Christian or a supporter at all in order to idolize somebody for a Christian nationalist ideology. How many more...
You think Milo would come on stream and debate you if you asked? No, man. There's nothing. What would he gain from debating me? Absolutely nothing. At least Destiny has a big following. Like I mean, I have an audience, but like it would be too risky for him with too little reward. Where at least Destiny, it was a lot of risk, but there was some reward there. Then again, he doesn't seem to be making a lot of wise decisions lately.
More porn stars does Donald Trump need to work his way through behind his wife's back before Christian nationalists stop worshiping him as their savior? As small as Christian nationalism is as a movement, even with it being as small as it is, there is still endless infighting. Anyone who's taken a gander recently at Milo, Ali Alexander, or Fuentes' Telegram account can attest to that. And now, with an already fractured and fighting minority movement, some want to put even more restrictions, such as race, lineage, sexuality, LGBT status, or geography on who ought to be allowed to join their movement. The glory days of Christianity are largely over. While the number of worshipers have ebbed and flowed through time, it's impossible for us to return to where we came from. In 1999, almost 70% of Americans were part of a church, synagogue, or mosque. And just 20 years later, in 2020, according to Pew Research, that number has fallen to just 47%, a minority of the population for the first time in U.S. history. We need to be realistic about the coming years. We need to help our young men and women find purpose in the world, stop pretending like some Christian nationalism is the answer. We need to find ways to get our young people engaged with their friends, family, and their communities.
The main argument here, and I see Destiny aiming for this argument, the main argument he should be making is that Milo's going to argue that Christianity is the lens to see the world, is to show purpose, it is to deal with depression. All Destiny has to do is show that you can get purpose, you can view the world through a separate lens from Christianity and create a decent world, a decent society, and have purpose in your life without God. That's all Destiny has to argue. If Destiny can argue that people can do that and they can live fulfilling lives without Milo's relationship with God, without his authoritarian relationship with God, and what he wants everybody else to do, then Destiny's won. That's all he has to do.
In ways that synergize with the technological explosion the entire world has experienced. If Christian nationalists want to continue to practice Christianity in America, then I say we let them. However, we should never allow them to take away our right not to do the same.
All right. We will now have 5 minutes of rebuttals from each of you guys. So we'll start with Milo. You have 5 minutes.
If the movement is Thank you. If the movement, such as it is, I didn't realize there was one, but if Christian nationalism is not yet adequately defined, it's because nobody used it before 2 years ago, which it seems to me to be perfectly reasonable. Trump is not a religious leader in any sense, and you're making a classic mistake of people who don't understand religion, don't understand God, and don't understand their own country when you say, hold Trump up as a kind of moral example. Render unto Caesar. We don't expect that our presidents should be like Jesus because they're not here to do Jesus's job. So, no. It's interesting you talk about women's rights. I mean, Christianity is the... Sorry, I mean... You know, I just don't know how hard to go in, really. I mean, you know, you're talking about the religion that gave women consent in marriage.
Dude, look at Destiny, how unfazed Destiny is, man. He's like a machine, man. He's just waiting. He's just waiting.
You know, you're talking about the religion that gave women consent in marriage. You're talking about the religion that gave women the right to say no, that elevated them from chattel into human beings. You want to return women to chattel. You want women to be like your wife, passed around town. I'm sorry, but
It's like so early, just so early into the debate, going into onto his wife, not going into like, oh, it's hypocritical that you live this way while also do this way. It's not relevant to it at all. Just like randomly going at his wife, just randomly, man. At this moment, Destiny should have just been like, okay, I am done messing around with this guy. I should be as mean and as cruel as possible. Because at this point, I feel like it should have just been gloves off. But Destiny had a lot more restraint than I would have had in a similar situation. Jeffram, thank you for the 1,000 biddies. Can't wait to watch this later. You rock, Dylan. Thank you. It'll probably be on my second channel, DylanBurnsLIVE. Before you know it. I appreciate 1,000 bits, by the way.
I'm not going to take moral lectures on the rights of women from somebody who treats supposedly their wife in what ought to be a holy sacrament as a communal sex toy. Give me a break. Give me a break. I'm not going to take moral lectures from somebody who, for all intents and purposes, may as well have a fleshlight.
Jesus Christ, it's not, he's completely forgotten the point. I feel like he's actually forgotten the point. I think that he forgot the point he was making and is now just moved over into trying to bully Destiny over the fact that he has an open marriage with his wife.
Instead of a wife who demeans and besmirches her honor, who speaks...
Besmirches her honor, man. Watching Game of Thrones.
About a woman who should be treated with the reverence and respect and love that we treat our own mothers with, like she was something you could buy, like she's something that just to get off with, passed around to other men while you watch.
What do you mean he watched? Does he watch? I was unfamiliar that he watched. That's new information. How does he know? Wait, does he know? Does he like... Does he watch? Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know much about Destiny's sex life, but this now just feels like he's writing like cuck fantasy, like a novel. Like he's writing like, you know, fan fiction at this point. Sits in the corner chair. It's Nico moment.
Flicking yourself off. So forgive me if I decline to take any lectures from you on women's bloody rights.
Why? Okay, I don't understand why him having an open relationship with his wife means that he cannot care about women's rights to vote, women's right to do many things. Also, women didn't have the right to vote in the United States until the 1920s, largely in part due to people using a Christian interpretation of the faith to say that they shouldn't be able to vote. So as much as you want to talk about Christianity enshrining this and this for women, and enshrining certain protections for women here and certain protections for women here, number one, it depended on if they were an enslaved woman or not an enslaved woman, because the Bible also included instructions on how to beat your slave. And two, it was also a stopping block for many preachers in trying to stop the progress of women, because they're saying that women is the man's helper. It is not their job to be involved in politics. So as much as you can talk about certain things that the Bible might have guaranteed for women in certain societies, it also acted as a you know, a roadblock, as a bump in the road in many other instances. So just trying to say that it just enshrined the protections of women is whitewashing, I think, the history of Christianity in this country. But dude, I don't even know why I'm trying to make a coherent point here, man. He's just talking about Destiny's wife. He's just talking about her like a fleshlight. It was really weird.
As for gay rights, no thanks. I didn't want them when I was having sex with men, and I don't want them now. Catholicism and Islam are growing, in case you aren't familiar with the word.
You know, Destiny... Milo would sell the rope to the Nazi that would then hang him for being queer in order to make a quick buck. That's all I'll say on that.
World outside these borders. And the reason for that is that everybody sees what a bloody mess we're all in, thanks to globalization, thanks to the information economy, thanks to the kinds of changes that he says are inexorable, because like a lot of undereducated people, he doesn't have much of a grasp of the world before he was born. I think if you were to glance a little further back, whether it were to ancient Greece or Rome or the Holy Roman Empire, you would see plenty of examples in history, or even, dare I say it, the Weimar Republic. A little bit closer to our own era, in which an era of rampant sexual degeneracy was indeed replaced by some quite stern social rules, to put it mildly. History is replete with examples of what happens when the...
Wasn't that bad, though? What was worse? The Nazis or Weimar Germany? Like, Weimar Germany was better than the Kaiser, and Weimar Germany was better than the Nazis. Just like, period, end of paragraph. It allowed people to do more research into LGBTQ plus people, especially when it comes to transgender people, which the Nazis then burnt the books of, which I guess Milo would have been in that crowd burning the books before then being shipped off to the gas chambers to be killed in the Holocaust. I don't know. This is a weird argument. This is a weird debate, man. We're only 18 minutes in, but this feels like it's been happening for a lifetime.
Public gets sick of people like you fucking everything up, breaking everything apart, and destroying all the things that make society precious, that make relationships work. In fact, if you are to look back in history as far as Greece and Rome, you might say that history is really the story of how people like you, given undue influence and larger platforms than they deserve, continually...
Dog, who pays attention to Milo Yiannopoulos anymore? Destiny has a bigger platform than he deserves. Dude, Milo Yiannopoulos went on a podcast to talk about how it's okay that praise touched little boys, and he tried to justify it. That ruined his career, and now he's come back only after saying, no, guys, I'll never be gay again. Please, I'll never look at a cute boy again. No, I don't think boys are cute. And now he's doing this. As a Christian nationalist, he's LARPing this way, as the colleagues that he was working with are claiming that he's still engaged in homosexual behavior, he's still gay, he's still flying out his quote-unquote ex-husband out to have intercourse with him in places like in California. Look, I'm sorry, man, but I don't buy it.
Express views that are so...
I don't buy it. I don't even know if he should have a platform. He doesn't even feel like he's in the right state of mind, that he's sober enough to be on a platform.
Than they deserve, continually express views that are so far outside of the mainstream and so out of step with what ordinary people think that you have to be regularly slaughtered, and new governments have to be installed, and coups have to be engaged in. Just
to be clear, he says that
DEDFRA has donated $10.
Hey, Zedfra. Zero. Thank you, Zedfra, for the zero message, and thank you for the $10 dedicated towards me making sure that we keep the world global homo and not Christian nationalist. I appreciate it, buddy, as I'm trying to recover all the stolen camera money. The thing that gets me about this is that he's talking about, all the normal people hate you, all the normal people hate you. But if you were to poll people on Christian nationalism, the vast majority of people want a secular society. The vast majority of people want to protect the First Amendment. The vast majority of people want to protect the Second Amendment to all people, including trans people. The majority of people believe that trans people are naturally occurring within a society, 64% of people. His position is the radical position, but he needs to assume, and he needs the audience to assume, that because he holds what is supposed to be the conservative position, the Christian position, that everybody else will just agree with him naturally. They will naturally agree with the person who's obviously faking being reformed homosexual in front of everybody while intoxicated. He just needs them to assume it.
To keep people like you in line, because otherwise we'd all be dead. So I'm sorry, but I'm certainly not going to take any kind of moral lectures from you on anything. But I've given you a few examples of why everything you just said is complete and absolute nonsense. But let me tell you, if your memory stretches back, and as you're at university, you're an educated person, it should be further than 1980. Yeah, you absolutely can put it back in the box. And we must, and we should, because otherwise America is done.
All right, Destiny, you have 5 minutes for your rebuttal.
I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to respond to. I think it's a little funny that apparently I'm so far outside of what people regularly think, despite the fact that I'm pretty sure I'm giving you a bigger audience than you've had in the past several years post your cancellation. But I see that this is what the dying throes, I guess, of an internet provocateur, as he self-described himself back when you were writing on the alt-right, then when you were writing on Trump. Now when I guess you're not writing on guys anymore, because apparently you prayed away the gay. So whatever you're doing now. But I won't get into all that. I'll take the high road, despite the fact that you're one of the most obsessed with my wife's vagina gay guys I've ever seen in my entire life, which is very weird, but very strange. I'll kind of reiterate what I said before, I guess.
Dude, he can't shut up. He's wasted. I refuse to believe he's sober. I refuse to believe he's sober. Anybody who says he's sober, man, if you believe he's sober, man, I've got a timeshare to sell you. My goodness, man. I don't know who let him in the building. Who let him in the building, dog? I can't believe Destiny's being this nice to him. He's being too kind to him. He should have been meaner.
But very strange. I'll kind of reiterate what I said before, I guess. I don't know how long we're going to do this, but yeah, I think that Christian nationalism is largely a joke. I guess you can kind of see that the figures that are proponents of Christian nationalism, like Christian nationalism, are largely jokes. They don't really have any serious positions. They just sit up here trying to provoke. They really have nothing to offer the public, nothing to offer the public discourse, nothing to offer the people that are, I guess, trying to join and leave these movements, because obviously, as we can see online, they are ever fracturing and ever infighting more and more every single day. Yeah.
All right. We'll move on to the questions right now. The person who I will direct a question towards has 5 minutes to respond, and then the opponent has 3.
Look how quick Destiny was done in comparison to Milo's rambling. I'm sorry, just like, oh my God, man. So much of this is so worthless.
3 minutes to respond to that. And the first question is from Milo. As we know, Christianity has a lot of denominations, and even amongst your faith, Catholicism, there are lots of conflicting interpretations of the Bible and other differing opinions. How would you, in your Christian national society, coexist with non-Catholics?
You don't have to, I mean, my patron saint, Louis IX, the only canonized king of France, says that he knows what's coming already.
Jade Monkey got a tier 1 subscription. Milo is wearing the straightest looking coat I have ever seen.
That's true. If that jacket is the one thing that makes me think that he might have actually reformed from homosexuality.
It must be Elijah. I've been warned.
But that's the other thing. The fact that he's such a drama queen and he started with like the dead kids and stuff also makes me think he isn't a reformed homosexual.
About you. Said that it wasn't really proper to debate these kinds of things, and it's better to run somebody through with a sword than to hear them besmirch the faith or whatnot. But if you think that coexistence with Christians is such an onerous and dreadful burden, perhaps you might like to tell the Jews, who seem to quite like it. In fact, Jews and Christians, it seems to me, do best in the sort of situation that you have in the West, with a Christian governing majority and a Jewish minority, so that we don't all get too super serious and up ourselves. And we have some good new interpretations of Mendelssohn now and again. There aren't any conflicting interpretations of the Bible in Catholicism. There is only church teaching. And church teaching is eternal, unless some pope comes along and decides that, even Francis hasn't done that he's going to rip it all up. Coexisting with Christians is the easiest thing to do in the world. And I can't remember who gave this example, but if you heard footsteps, this is not my analogy, but if you heard footsteps coming up behind you in a dark alley at night, would you feel safer if you knew that it was Dylan Mulvaney or any church-going Christian?
All right, for
is occurred.
What a good point, Vosh.
Blue Rider of Neptune gave soap_box a tier 1 subscription. Milo is doing his best impression of Johnny Depp.
I know Johnny Depp at his worst binges, man. Just gonna start stiff. I'm playing the cocaine. Oh, dude. I wrote somebody needs to get this dude like some help. Actually,
I think you have 3 minutes now to respond to that.
I'm sorry, can you read the prompt again?
Yeah, sure. As we know, Christianity has a lot of denominations. Even amongst your faith, Catholicism, Milo's faith, there are lots of conflicting interpretations of the Bible. How would your Christian national society coexist with non-Catholics?
Well, I mean, the society that I advocate for is the one that exists today, where people are allowed to worship whatever religion they want. I think that right now, America is superior to a Christian nationalist version of it, because if two different people decide they want to worship two different versions of Christianity, they have the right to do that. Obviously, in Milo's world, I guess the non-Catholics even, I think, would get killed. I don't know how many, where the killing starts and stops for his version of Christian nationalism, or ethnically, I don't know where that starts or stops. I heard the run through the sword thing. Maybe you forgot what you said. I'm not sure what you were doing in the bathroom while we were waiting for you for 20 minutes here, but maybe it's affecting your memory a little bit. But yeah, I think in the United States...
It's so obvious. It's so obvious. There's a reason why the audience is laughing. It's so obvious that he's intoxicated, man. I don't know what he's on.
I think one of the reasons why the United States works as well as it does is because we've allowed so many different people to come here, worship in the way that we want, or worship in the way that they want, and we should continue to allow them to do so.
40 minutes is a terribly long time to do a line of coke. I was late. I was late for the ordinary reasons that people are late. I was at the hairdresser.
Totally reformed homosexual.
All right, Destiny.
You know, I have the personality I have. I'm sort of stuck with it now.
Now your question, Destiny. You have 5 minutes to respond to this, and then I'll have 3 minutes to respond to that. Some would argue that a society without religion at its core would devolve into a nihilistic society, deprived of any meaning or purpose. How would you prevent, in your society, non-Christian nationalist governing society, from devolving into a nihilistic, meaningless society?
I think that you have to have something greater than yourself to live for, and I think religion is like a really easy package to give somebody that kind of solves for a lot of those problems. It gives you a nice guide for how to view the world, it gives you a nice guide for how to view your family, it gives you a nice guide for how to live an ethical life, and through that package, people feel like they have something greater than themselves to live for. I don't think it's impossible to have that thing without religion, but I think right now we're very politically fractured as a country, and it makes it really difficult for us to have those things. So for instance, there are certain topics that are hotly contested that I don't think should be. So for instance, all of us should be able to say we're proud to be Americans. That includes progressives, that includes BLM people, that includes people on the left, it includes anybody that might, you know, however far left you go, you should be able to say that. That shouldn't be ground that we cede to people on the right. I think it's kind of a shame that if you see an American flag on somebody's car today, you basically know that they're a conservative because nobody on the left would put that on their car. I think that's an insane proposition. True. So I think that when we've gotten to this point to where we're so politically divided that people can't even feel proud of their country anymore, if you also take away religion from those people too, then they're kind of aimlessly, I guess, wandering from Twitter to Facebook to YouTube to whatever, just endlessly shitting on each other with no common united purpose. So I think that one of the things we need to work on more than anything else is kind of healing some of the political fracture that exists in this country. I think it's good that we argue with each other, but it's not good that we are relentlessly banning people from every platform so that we're all kind of like gathering in different areas and we're not even able to have conversations with each other in the same reality anymore.
Oh.
Just look at the societies that Christians build. I mean, earlier he says, oh, you know, you get rid of the First Amendment, and there goes satire.
I guess the stream cut out for a bit.
Again, apparently a memory that doesn't stretch back before 1980. Because I think most of the best satirists were Christian Europeans, weren't they? And before that, they were pagans. And, you know, we live in a very Hellenistic kind of inheritance, and it was just complete and total bollocks. And you've been doing a lot of complete and total bollocks, assigning positions to me that I don't hold, and saying, oh, he wants to murder everyone, he wants to kill all the blacks.
Did I miss why? Dude, did I miss something? Because I thought he said wanted to like enforce with like blood, like his Catholic regime or whatever. And now it's the black people. I don't know what I missed when the camera was off, man.
No. Look at the societies that Christians build. Look at the things they build. In Catholic theology, there's a thing called the Transcendentals, and it's supposedly the things that all souls have.
I'm looking at the chat. They said he's never said that, man. Oof. Feels like he might have, dude. He could have unironically just been like, "I don't think we should kill all the non-Catholics. That's ridiculous. That's never been my position." He could have just said that. Looked like a normal person for 5 seconds, but he said he had to exaggerate it even further because he couldn't just pick up a W for like a millisecond.
That all people yearn for, and which brings us closer to an understanding of God. Now, opinions differ on how many of these things there are, but the core three that everyone agrees on is beauty, truth, and goodness. And it seems to me that if you look at the frescoes in Italy, or you listen to German composers, or look at Dutch painting, that we in Western Christian Europe have done a pretty good job of embracing beauty, truth, and goodness, and also self-sacrifice and sacrifice for love, which is the central image of Christianity.
We also had the Spanish Inquisition. We also had a lot of non-lovely, beautiful things.
Feuerbach, the philosopher who was not a Christian, did not like Christians at all, said that, you can sort of tell what a culture's all about from its religion's kind of central symbol. Ours is Christ on the cross, dying for someone you love. It's Tristan and Isolde. It's all the...
Well, I mean, technically it's a torture device. Our central symbol is a cross, and it is a torture device. I mean, yeah, you could frame it that way, Christ dying on the cross, dying for somebody you love. If you add Christ and you add a little bit more detail, then make it better. But like as a basic symbol, it is a torture device.
Things that we think are most noble. It's sending people to war to die for their country. All of those values, all those things we love, rest on the image of Christ on the cross.
We love sending people to go die for their... Okay, whatever. We do kind of like that, actually. Not in the way he's suggesting.
We are good only because we have learned goodness from Christianity. And we can insist in a prideful way that, no, I'm good because I made myself good, because...
There are good people across all societies, Christian and non-Christian.
I got there through reason. All right, mate. Just look at the societies that Christians build, and you tell me where you want to live. Is it Abu Dhabi? Is it the Congo? Is it Sparta?
Wait. What is the religious makeup of the Congo? Some 3/4 of the population is Christian. I was like, yeah, of course, man. No, not even a shred of basic research he did before this debate.
Or is it Western Europe, maybe 50 years ago? I know where I'd rather be.
All right, last question for Milo. And you'll have 5 minutes to respond to this, and Destiny will have 3 minutes to respond to that. Some would argue that societies governed under one faith can devolve into tyranny. How would you prevent a Second Inquisition or a Soviet-style dictatorship with them forcing people to proclaim their allegiance to the state and faith?
Well, the Soviets are crap because they failed. I mean, they failed to do what America has accomplished, which is have people thank you for their enslavement and ask for more chains. The Soviet Union never really achieved that, but America has, with prescription drugs and all the other things that people are addicted to. I mean, everybody in this room is dependent on a cocktail, a little package, a little consumer package of things that get them through, whether it's their credit cards or gaming or...
Dude, it just sounds like this is all projection about his personal struggles with addiction, man.
Or whatever, passing your wife around. These are the things that sort of get you through life. I'm not terribly concerned about preventing.
Dude, comparing heroin addiction to an open relationship is wild.
Another Inquisition, I think that'd be quite a good idea. Got a pretty bad rap, just like the Crusades does. I mean,
they lynched so many Jews. I just want to throw that out there. The Spanish Inquisition did some terrible things. I guess he'll defend those things, but it was not good.
You won't hear this from dishonest people who throw accusations at, without really listening to the arguments of their opponents and who aren't educated prior to 1980. But the Crusades were a defensive war. The Inquisition wasn't all that it's been said to be. I don't have an enormous problem with us wandering around and making sure people aren't murdering each other in the womb and making, sitting back and making money off the poor, landlords in Brooklyn. I don't have a terrible problem with that. I don't think that protecting against tyranny is the thing that America should be most concerned with at the moment. I think an urgent, strict, and perhaps stern realignment to...
One second, let me read this. It got a bad rap. In 1492, when the Catholic monarchs King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella expelled them, some 300,000 Jews, up to a quarter of the Spanish population, had to convert to Catholicism or flee Spain or were killed in the Spanish Inquisition. Not a bad rap. Also, the Crusades were not defensive.
A much more conventional morality would make everybody happier. And I don't think that anyone in this room can honestly say that America is better now than it was when most people were going to church or at least God-fearing. It isn't better. And you don't have to be a Christian to participate in a Christian society. Christians are the best of all at letting people in, sometimes too much. Sometimes the people that come in end up messing everything up. You don't have to be a Christian to benefit from a Christian society, and lots of people in this room have done exactly that. But when you take God out and things start to fall apart, you end up in a world nobody wants to live in. And we are in. Sorry?
What year? You're referring to a traditional Christianity. What year are you referring to?
What do you mean?
Like you're referring to a traditional Christianity.
Oh, well, I mean, if I had my way, I'd go back to about 1200. Lots of propagandists in university departments.
To be clear, he's just like he's like openly endorsing the Spanish Inquisition. Wants to go back to the year 1200. Destiny's saying he just wanted to kill all the non-Catholics. It's not even that much of an exaggeration.
Call it the Dark Ages. Well, this is a conversation for another day, really. But that seems to me it was quite a nice time to live. And
imagine being this much of a repressed homosexual that you kind of like accidentally endorse like genocidal actions.
I think that you would find, if you care about this kind of thing, if you do care about things above and beyond yourself, if you care about where we go afterwards, if you care about leaving a good legacy, if you care about being good to the people around you, I think a lot more people in 1400 got into heaven each year than do now.
I mean, is that because of the Black Plague or because of their faith? I don't...
And I don't think you have to be a Christian to accept that that's because we're not nice anymore. And we're not good to each other. And the reason for that is the failing moral architecture and underpinning of society, which was required by the founders, or this stuff doesn't function. And it's not.
All right, Destiny, you have 3 minutes to respond.
Can you hit me up with that prompt again?
Some would argue that societies governed under one faith can devolve into tyranny. How would you prevent a second Inquisition or a Soviet-style dictatorship where people have to proclaim their allegiance to the state and faith?
I mean, it's kind of a hard question for me to answer because I'm not advocating for Christian nationalism, but I would say, obviously, we should be allowed to carry on as we are now, where everybody's allowed to choose what God they want to worship, choose the lifestyle they want to live, as long as they're not encroaching on the freedoms of other people. I think you should continue to have the right to do that. So it's my argument in the negative. Also, I do think it's kind of funny that Milo pointed out that everybody in here is addicted to consumerist packaging, when I'm pretty sure that bag is worth like 10 times more than my entire outfit.
It is. It is.
Damn.
All right, now we will do the last question for you, Destiny, and then we'll go to the Q&A/crossfire. Some would argue that most people are naturally drawn to some sort of faith.
We're only 34 minutes in. This is wild.
Or belief in a higher power. How would you prevent your society from inevitably becoming a religious society and thus being run by the exact same organizing faith or ideas that you want to try and stop?
I mean, I think the important thing is for people to have something bigger than themselves to live for. I don't think it has to be religion, but if it was religion, I don't necessarily think that's the worst thing in the world. I think that the defining aspect of the United States is that a lot of people with contradictory ideas can exist within the same geographic borders, governed by the same legal system, voting on the same politicians, and somehow finding a way to make all of that work. I think we've done it for hundreds of years. I think we do it better than any other country on the planet right now, today, not before 1980, not in the 1200s, but today in 2023, I think we have an incredibly diverse country of people, all sorts of creeds, all sorts of ethnicities, all sorts of different types of people that seem to be living together and making it work. I think we have problems right now, like I mentioned earlier, with the political division. And I think that that's a real problem that we need to combat, but I think we need to do it by having honest conversations about what we can do to move forward, not by talking to people that want to look back hundreds or thousands of years to what society used to look like before there was Gucci and hairdressers.
I could live without both if it meant that you would be left on a mountainside somewhere, your parents wondering which god they'd pissed off, which is exactly what would have happened in a pre-Christian civilization to some.
Dude, he's just so pointlessly edgy. He's so pointlessly, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. He's like trying to put as much vitriol and anger into each statement, which I think he thinks makes him look cool or badass, but it just makes him look, I don't know, vindictive. He just makes him look like he's frustrated. He doesn't know how to deal with the words Destiny's putting out. Makes him look a little cowardly because he can't deal with what Destiny's saying. He just looks so out of his depth and just frustrated by that.
Parents wondering which god they'd pissed off, which is exactly what would have happened in a pre-Christian civilization to something like you.
Probably would have left the gays there before people like me.
Well, I don't think you can tell when it pops out whether it's going to like cock or not. Maybe if it's your kid, but I'm sure you'll ensure that's the case.
I mean, you'd know all about kids liking, huh? Isn't that?
Would I? Would I? Would I? Tell us more about that. Would I?
Again, for those of you who don't know, on the Drunken Peasants podcast, he made excuses for priests touching little boys. I don't know if anybody wants to link the thing, because if I feel like we're going here. If somebody wants to link it, I think it would be a good time to watch it.
Because that's a pretty big allegation. Would I?
Would you what?
But he says allegation. You said it. You said it yourself.
Would I know about that?
Well, seems like it. Isn't that what you got canceled for?
It's true.
No, I got canceled for talking about the fact that I was a victim of clerical sexual abuse.
And then took that trauma and tried to use it to justify clerical sexual abuse.
It was
so about like little boys liking, right?
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, yeah.
I mean, you got there eventually. It's okay.
Okay.
I can tell you're coming down right now, but I'll walk you through the rest of my jokes if you need me to.
No, fair enough. No, okay. Are you bringing it? Fine. It's a shame Father Michael's daddy would have liked that. I think if I don't know that it makes me an expert.
People are talking about like allegation. People are like shouting in the crowd. Look, this is like confirmed. Can we like Drunken Peasants Milo clip? Drunken Peasants Milo clip. Since nobody's linking it, gotta watch it. We have to watch it because I won't let him like just completely pretend this didn't happen. Do we have any video of the exact clip? Here it is.
I think now's a good time to ask Milo the real question that's on everybody's mind. We've covered all this other tertiary shit. Let's get to the heart of it. Since you're a world traveler and all, you've been to America, you of course live in the UK. American flapjacks or UK flapjacks?
Oh,
Go.
God.
I mean, look.
Are we wrapping up here, or what are we doing?
Compare your cookies, like your cookies. Those.
Is this it?
World.
Well, no, this isn't it. Can we get the actual clip? Come on, just clickbait. Come on. Does anybody have the actual original clip? Anybody link it? Nobody linked it. Okay, somebody finally linked it.
So the central.
Okay, well this is Kyle Clancy, but I assume he shows it. Yeah, here it is.
Take to go along
between younger boys and older men, the sort of coming of age relationships, the relationships in which those older men help those young boys to discover who they are and give them security and safety and provide them with love and a reliable sort of a rock where they can't speak to their parents. Some of those relationships are some of the most
molestation to me. It sounds
well,
like
you know what?
It sounds like Catholic priest molestation to me.
And you know what? I'm grateful for Father Michael. I wouldn't give nearly such good head if it wasn't for him.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
In a homosexual.
Oh God, man! It's like you can go watch the full thing yourself. Trust me, more context is not going to make it any better. He said what he said.
On kids liking being raised by a priest, but if you want some comedy lessons afterwards, I'm happy to give you 20 minutes. What was the question? Sorry, I was so bored.
The question was, some would argue that most people are naturally drawn to some sort of faith or belief in a higher power. How would you, Destiny, prevent your society from inevitably becoming a religious society and thus being run by the same organizing faith ideas?
I think it's a bit lazy to say, as people often do, that we now have a kind of alternate sort of progressive religion. I don't think that progressivism really functions like a religion. It's true that when you take God out of things, you don't just sort of, you know, get rid of him in the same way that when you get rid of a king, you don't really get rid of the king. You still are ruled by people that you have no power over. The difference is that in America, you don't know their names because they lurk behind that flag, rubbing their hands and making money off you and getting you addicted to things. You don't know their names, so you can't assassinate them. One reason monarchy is better. I think... sorry, I forgot the question.
Dog, he's so clueless.
Oh, it was about how do you prevent it from sliding in? Yeah, I think it's lazy when people say, "Oh, we've replaced kind of, one religion with a progressive religion." It's true that when God moves out, that other things move in. You don't just kind of get rid of it and now everyone's happy and now everyone can just be nice to each other. That yearning that you've acknowledged that we all have has got to be satisfied by something.
Dude, I've met actual crackheads who have who are better communicators. I've met actual crackheads who are better communicators than Milo Yiannopoulos.
So if you take the Christian God out, something worse moves in because there isn't anything better than that. There isn't anything better than that for organizing society. There isn't anything better than that for teaching people how to behave to one another. There isn't anything better than that objectively, practically, and empirically. So things do move in, but progressivism of the type that he likes doesn't function like a religion because all religions have one thing in common that his political orthodoxy doesn't, and that's salvation and forgiveness. Because there is no forgiveness for people who are cancelled, whether or not they were responsible for what happened to them and were trying to make sense of an abuse experience, or whether they said something that they shouldn't have said. There's no way back. There's no forgiveness. There's no redemption, and that's the thing that all religions, except for this orthodoxy, seem to have in common. So I don't think it's. I think it's a bit lazy to say that one religion gets replaced by another, but it is definitely true that you cannot simply chop off the top of the pyramid and expect everything to be fine. Something worse will slither its way up there, and it has.
Thank you guys so much. Let's give everybody, both of them, a round of applause, please.
They don't deserve it. They don't deserve it. They don't deserve it. Don't clap.
Now we're going to move into the...
Okay, we'll watch some of the Q&A. Well, I'm not going to watch all of it because this goes on for like 2 hours. So we'll watch maybe like 10, 15 minutes of it.
Audience Q&A, so if you'd like to ask a question, line up behind me.
National policy on smoking. All right, so in like a potential Christian nationalist or like theocratic U.S., what would kind of the government policy on smoking indoors be? Is that like permitted?
There's something odd about smoking. Smoking's the only thing that's bad for you that the government doesn't promote.
See, that's kind of what I think.
Yeah, there's something up with that. I feel like maybe like on the low, smoking is really good for you, and they just don't want us to know, and cancer comes from like the TV or something, because there's no
something, yeah.
There's something, whatever, you know. No, it's bad vibes or the devils or something, but there's something weird about the fact that
look at Destiny. He's so soulless. He's just looking at the he's completely checked out. He's like creating a grocery list in his head right now.
Smoking's the only thing that kills you that the government doesn't subsidize and encourage.
See, yeah, I've always found that to be kind of questionable.
I think smoking is extremely based, and I can tell you, without a shadow of a doubt, certainly in my faith tradition, the early church fathers were very enthusiastic about alcohol, in moderation, of course, although moderation had a slightly different meaning in the 1200s. So I think they would be lighting up the Marlboro right next to you.
Dude, the government says that you shouldn't have lead paint. That must mean we should all go out and eat the lead paint. Government says you put on a seatbelt. It means you should not wear seatbelt. Suicide cult. Suicide cult.
All right, well, awesome. Destin, do you have any sort of opinion on that, or?
I kind of like smoking being banned from indoors. I'm gonna be honest. Somebody that is
I didn't live it. I didn't live it. So.
As somebody that's 34, the older people in here will remember for restaurants we had no smoking sections. They definitely didn't work. I don't mind people smoking, I guess, like outside if they want to smoke, but having to share spaces with just disgusting cigarette smoke, like constantly wafting through the air, especially if you've got kids around and stuff, I think is really disgusting. So I'm glad it's gone from inside.
You sort of get used to it, though. I mean, the only reason to visit Germany after 1945, really, is the fact that you can smoke while you're having a coffee.
There's a lot of drugs you can get used to, but I don't know if you're a good argument in favor of that.
Wait, the only reason to visit Germany after 1945? Why would he want to visit Germany before 1945? I have a weird feeling that didn't mean with the invading army.
I'm not saying that there's, there are certain things that you can't necessarily argue from first principles convincingly, but nonetheless seem to work better, like monarchy and smoking.
All right, well, fair enough. Thank you, guys.
Didn't he say after? Yeah, but no, he said the only reason to visit Germany after 1945 is this, meaning that there were more reasons to visit Germany before 1945 when the Nazi regime collapsed.
Clawed one person back, you see.
I'm so glad someone brought up smoking, because I really needed a Marlboro Red coming in here, and I was like, God, okay.
It's hardcore. It's hardcore. I'm a Newport Lights guy.
Okay, right.
Smoke for the man you want, as
From
was.
John, maybe. But I wanted to ask you, Milo. It's a question on speech, and the first one was, what happened to make America hate again? I was looking forward to that book. I was telling all my friends and family about it, and then it didn't come out.
I kept getting employed by people, but I've written most of it. And I think it's become actually more urgent than ever. There's a particular understanding of hate, which I think the left fails to make this distinction, probably on purpose a lot of the time. You'll hear Christians sometimes say, hate the sin and love the sinner.
For those of you who don't know, he's written a book, Make America Hate Again. He's just purposely being as provocative as possible. He's a professional provocateur. He just wants to release content that is as provocative as possible to get attention on him. He has not really changed or evolved at all, really. But he's tried to change his aesthetics, but his character as an individual has not changed at all. And that's why he has slowly spiraled, because he has not innovated at all, keeping the same character traits, making the same mistakes over and over and over, while becoming a more ridiculous character. And that's why now Destiny's the headliner and he's the B-liner here.
What they mean by that is that people are what they do. People are their conscious choices, right? So we shouldn't hate people because they were born a particular ethnicity or gender or whatever, obviously, unless they're French. But what we should instead do is judge them by what they choose to do, right? So people are their actions. And psychology is now catching up with religion. It's, there's no gay men on forms anymore. It's men who have sex with men. So psychology is kind of catching up with this idea that we are what we choose to do. We can hate what people do, the choices they make, and the evil that they perpetuate, without hating them as human beings, as children of God. And I think it's become more urgent than ever that we, I think, rehabilitate hate. And I definitely have been encouraged to.
There has to be some irony in the fact that Milo has made a big career when during the Trump era, when he was calling Trump daddy and praising Trump as almost like a cult leader. One of his main shticks was talking about how evil the Muslims are and how homophobic they are, and how the liberals would never dare call out the Muslims because they're brown and they're Muslims, and they would never call out a Muslim for being homophobic, right? Now, 5-6 years later, he is the stereotype of Muslims that he crafted in his head of the American Muslim, right? Even though in the United States, we are unbelievably good at integrating people from cultures all over the world, from religions all around the world. And now he has become that stereotype that he was warning people about 6-7 years ago. And he's advocating for the things that he warned people, Muslims in the United States, would advocate for if they were to immigrate to America in large numbers. Crazy, man. Complete 180.
Get that bloody project finished, because I think it's more urgently needed than ever. We ought to be able to look at something abhorrent and say, I hate it. I hate it powerfully. I hate it passionately. I hate it with every fiber of my being, and I'll fight it, and I'll stop it, and I'll die for it. I'll die to get rid of it. The kind of lifestyle he leads, is the sort of thing that I think it's okay to hate. It's a conscious choice that hurts everyone, that leaves lives ruined, you can see the results. That I think it's okay to hate, although I am commanded to love him as, a fellow man, as a Christian, which, I'm working on.
That brought me to the substance of what I wanted to ask you.
Oh, just on a real quick thing, because you didn't really answer that question. If you want to know when his next book is coming out, you should ask the guy that actually writes them.
Oh my God!
Milo writes them. I'm a big fan, and they're all fabulous. Anyway,
I think given that I write about 10,000 words a week on Telegram, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that I might throw a book together once every 2.5 years, which is roughly when I get around to doing them. But you tried.
And it's a great Telegram, almost better than
you tried.
Tucker. Okay, it is better than Tucker. But what I wanted to get to is with blasphemy.
Yeah.
Are blasphemy laws the proper way to have a First Amendment, but also keep it from corrupting itself?
Yes. I think you need a deterrent.
Remember, man, this is the free speech guy. He did like a whole tour about the purpose that he went from school to school to school was to be as offensive as possible, but prove the importance of the First Amendment, how much he loved America and his First Amendment, and he would praise it over the United Kingdom because offensive ideas needed to be confronted, and you should just confront Milo in the free marketplace of ideas. Now, 6-7 years later, after Milo was confronted in the free marketplace of ideas about why diddling kids is bad, he has now completely 180 this position, is now advocating for blasphemy laws to ban speech he doesn't like because he can't win in the free marketplace of ideas.
To remind people what it is that keeps everything held together. And I think if somebody goes out repeatedly, deliberately, blaspheming the name of our Lord, you should expect to have your tongue cut out, or worse, because that's the thing that keeps it.
This is the thing he's talking about. Do you want to live in Dubai? Do you want to live in these countries? He's like, the reasons I wouldn't want to live in many of the countries he would name, even though the Congo, I guess he didn't know it was a mostly Christian country, is a lot of these societies could have penalties that are somewhat like that, or could be comparable to that, to certain things said, which would be covered by the First Amendment in the United States. But he's actively trying to make America more like the countries he says nobody wants to move to, and he knows nobody wants to move to.
Everything together, in just the way that Americans get very touchy when flags, graze the floor and stuff like that. It's a perfectly reasonable anxiety to have, because the flag is a sort of, crap proxy for the things that really matter. I think it's perfectly reasonable to have those things sacrosanct, and America does. It just picks stupid shit instead of the right things.
Thank you.
Hello. So Milo, you have identified yourself as an ex-gay, and you have also advocated for conversion therapy.
Yes.
And making it to where it is more, I guess, acceptable to the media, or presenting a more positive light of conversion?
I don't much care if journalists like it or not. I just want to save souls, but go on.
Yeah. So I just wanted to know how you planned, on making it to be seen as, more positive in the media, just because a lot of studies have shown that conversion therapy is traumatic for...
No, they haven't. If you recall, even the...
No, they haven't. Oh, that was a really good point. I hadn't considered that one. Thank you, Milo. All those studies were liars, man. I'm gonna believe the coked up maniac who stumbled into this performance, stumbled into the show 40 minutes late, was doing rails in the bathroom. Who knows what he was doing out there? Okay, can barely get a word out. I'm gonna trust him over the data.
Most left wing. Well, that ridiculous. I mean, okay. The strongest argument you have is that Biden, the nuclear tranny, the one whose job was dealing with spent rods, ho-ho, who used to steal luggage from there was that lovely, was it a Nairobi woman? What was she? A fashion designer. That tranny that, I mean, you know, your first clue was he's wearing women's clothes, maybe not somebody you want around nuclear material. But
I don't know why that would be relevant.
But your strongest argument
why is this whole story even? It was about conversion therapy, and he's pivoted to this. That's the hardest pivot.
Went through conversion therapy, but of course on film he said it worked and he liked it. So the testimony is a bit unreliable in this area, and I think most of the reasons.
Wow, can you believe that once you go through conversion therapy, which is meant to abuse you and mentally manipulate you enough to deny who you are to the public, after going through that process, in many instances might even include torture, he said, I am cured. Wow, big surprise. You want to know how many of those people who say I'm cured, like 5-10 years later, you'll find them with their husband at their house? Including the person he's talking about.
Reason for that is that it doesn't work all the time, and the majority of it doesn't work most of the time, actually. The best that most people can hope for is celibacy, and I think that disappointment is what drives a lot of the negative testimony afterwards. I think that it works in conversion therapy's favor that it's hated, and if you find it ridiculous for me to say that you know that it's a good thing that works, there isn't a person in this room who can honestly say the press treated Donald Trump totally fairly in 2016. Even if you were on the other side, everybody now agrees, as sure as, you know, they agree.
Dude, he's making such a shit argument for everything, man.
On the color of the sky.
Like, I don't even know what to respond to here, because I'm trying to look for like a coherent point, but he keeps pivoting from topic.
Right.
Well, the first,
yeah, the dude doesn't. The dude answered the question. He's, oh my, dude. The dude. Oh, I'm just gonna shut up and let this play out. This is magical.
Agree on the color of the sky.
Right.
Well, the first,
I'm
getting there. I'm getting there. The first time that something was given that treatment, the treatment that Trump's had, was in the first episode of political correctness in the 1990s. So in the 1990s, there was a sort of brief flash of political correctness that was quite quickly put down by the counterculture. It came back with a vengeance later. We now live in it. But in that first brief flash of political correctness, that's when you had the old ladies with the big hair on TV saying that, you know, Marilyn Manson causes massacres at school, which I find, you know, just as ridiculous as people who say that video games cause school shooters, just as ridiculous as people who say that, you know.
Thank you.
Well, I'm trying to. Not everything has a two-word answer.
But I think it does. All I just want to know is how you plan on...
Well, if you knew the answer, you wouldn't be asking me.
Well, yeah, but you
I think we're done. Thank you.
in circles.
Like, you could have gotten anyone on that stage to debate Milo, and they would have performed. He would have made them look brilliant.
So, Destiny, I just want to say I'm a longtime viewer and fan.
Hey, what's up?
Nice to see you in person. As far as all the shit you give about your wife, threesomes are base, dog, so have your fun. Anyways, to my question. You guys seem to be implying that under Christian nationalism, things would get better. Well, he does. Things get better. I assume that means like crime and things like that. How do you reconcile that with the fact that like a lot of the prison population is very low atheist counts and dominantly Christian, and a lot of countries like Japan and over in Europe are less religious, and they seem to be more pleasant places to live. So if either of you guys have something to contribute on that, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I think that religion probably has a really complicated interaction with a person's life in a way that could either predispose you towards crime or could not predispose you, or predispose you against crime, or be a protective factor against crime. So for instance, if you grew up like in a religious family where religion is like a centerpiece of the family, but it's also built out to where you've got like a strong mother and father or two parents in the household, you've got like a good community of people that also worship, like in these types of situations, like I'm sure that religion probably functions as some kind of protective factor against like committing crime and whatnot. But if you look at like prison prison populations, where people go and they eventually convert, or a lot of, a lot of people can be violent and still, wear a rosary, which you're not supposed to do, or wear a chain or something that has a cross on it. I think sometimes you can scapegoat religion to do horrible things. I think that it's probably just depends on your engagement with your religion. I kind of view it as an instrument, a tool. You can either do good things through it, like the unbelievable amount of charitable givings and community involvement that churches have, or you can do horrible things with it, like people flying into buildings or going on mass shootings or, what have you.
Did you say you're not supposed to wear rosaries? Have you never been to Italy?
No, but I was a Catholic for like 16 years, and wearing a rosary was a big no-no. We got in big trouble in school when we did that. But
the answer to your question is race. The reason that there's no crime in Japan is it's entirely racially homogenous and wealthy. That's the answer. The reason that there's a lot of crime.
Dude, he's just a Nazi then. Okay, he is just what he was saying. The only good reason to go to Nazi Germany after 1945. So he's just he's literally just a Nazi. Just race. There's no scientific data to back this up whatsoever, but it's just race. He just throws race out there. America, the most prosperous society to ever be created. The most wealth to ever be created in a society. Most wealth to ever be created in a society. Ever. In any nation, ever. All thrown out of the window because too many brown. Even though they've been here since our nation's founding.
Is that America messed up emancipation.
What races commit the crimes?
I think we know. But there's a reason for that. There's a reason. Well, let me get to it. You can clip the good thing.
Pussyfooting about it. Just fucking say it, you coward.
She's right. He is pussyfooting around it.
Pussy, Milo.
This. All right.
He deserved it, and nobody's yelling at the guy to shut up because they know he deserves it.
Country messed up emancipation. What happened in the UK was that, and it feels gruesome to us now to speak in these terms, but property owners, sorry to say, were compensated for their losses. To put it, in those terms, in a sense, emancipation in Europe was a kind of eminent domain, where even if people wanted to grumble about it, they couldn't really say too much because they had got the market value for their house so the railway could be built. In America, they dragged it on for generations. They didn't do that, and then through a combination of incompetence and malice, blacks and whites were set against each other in this country, with the result that there is now a permanently grievance-focused 13% of the population. I mean, maybe 1% of the, black Americans don't hate everything and everyone, but the rest of them are predisposed toward
1%. Dog, he's just a Nazi, man. He's just a gay Nazi. He's literally just Ernst Röhm. Maybe 1% of black people don't hate everything and everyone. He's just a coked out, fake ex-homosexual, gay Nazi Ernst Röhm type. That's literally all he is now, man. I mean, that's kind of always what he has been, to be for real. But this is probably the most deliberate he's ever been about it. Besides the one time it was memeing hardcore about Lindsey Jones being a gorilla. That one comedian.
Antisocial behaviors because they were never welcomed into the pact. They were never properly welcomed into the American deal. They were never properly given a seat at the table, and they were never properly welcomed in, with the result that they immediately, after emancipation, because emancipation was messed up, started voting with their race. They never were welcomed into the American deal, into the pact. They never bought into the values, and they never participated in the process of being American citizens. So they didn't feel bound by the obligations that other Americans had towards one another, like jury trials should be based on the facts and not on whether he's black. I'm
sorry. There are more than 1% of black people in the United States if put in the jury trial and sat down there and say, look at the facts of the case. There's a black person involved that'd be willing to look at the facts of the case. In fact, many of the people who, deal with crime in their communities are going to see that a lot of the people who are committing crimes are also other black people. And so they're going to want to protect their communities. They're going to be interested in that. So they're going to want to hold these people accountable.
As a result of things that were done to them a very long time ago, Black America is now in a situation where there's sort of permanently petulant child constantly lashing out at a mixture of real and imagined grievances.
Man, again, it's just all projection.
And the answer to your question about crime is simply that. It's race. It's got nothing to do with religion.
Just an interesting addition to that. Two researchers, Whitehead and Perry, I didn't know the stat would come in handy, but black Americans are actually the largest ethnic group in the United States to support some form of Christian nationalism, which I think is really funny after all of that.
Yeah.
Oh, damn. Oh, damn, Milo. What do you got to say? I'm sure it'll be coherent and make sense.
And there are reasons for that. I mean, you've got people who.
Yeah, there sure are reasons for that, aren't there, Milo?
Look, it's mostly to do with where black people were and who was there too. So in the South, whether it's Georgia, which is traditionally English, or
I feel like Milo is like at the state of deterioration where somebody should those child leashes they put on people that look kind of like backpacks. Somebody needs to have one of those on Milo. Need to keep them out of public. Maybe tie. Maybe I don't know. Stop him from hurting himself and others. When he go into the grocery store, you tie him to a stop sign or something. I don't think he can operate without supervision.
Tennessee, which is more Scots-Irish. You've got more enthusiastic and more Anglican and more religion that stuck more from basically the Anglosphere versus some of the Dutch places. There's a very good book called American Nations, which kind of explains, by Colin Woodard, that sort of explains the different character of the various chunks of America. The main reason Black America it remains somewhat religious, although the church going doesn't necessarily translate into behavior or social attitudes these days.
Why not?
Well, because they're heretics, because they go to churches that are completely and utterly bonkers, because they don't go to preaching.
They're just the wrong type of Christian nationalists.
Who tell them about God. They're Pentecostals.
The correct type of Christian nationalist is going to be told to you by the totally ex-gay homosexual drug user,
or crystal Methodists, or some other kind of nonsense. The reason that they're not behaving as Christians is because they're not really Christians. But the main reason that they are religious at all is just where they were and how they were when everything came to an end.
Yeah, no, this is just racism. I don't know what else to say, man. He's just a racist piece of shit.
The funniest thing
is it's not even just a racist piece of shit. He's an incompetent, hard to listen to racist piece of shit.
Actually just made that up. I was seeing if he would actually try to talk his way through that, but I totally made that up. Thanks, Milo.
Wait, really?
Where they were and how they were when everything came to an end.
The funniest thing is I actually just made that up. I was seeing if he would actually try to talk his way through that, but I totally made that up. Thanks, Milo.
Well, thank you both.
It doesn't surprise me for a very simple reason, which is that it was black voters who resisted the proposition in California. Right?
He's still going. He's dragging it out. He's dragging it out. He's dragging. Stop it, man.
Gay marriage. It's not a ridiculous thing. It's not a gotcha to say that blacks are socially conservative. You can make some of the same arguments about Hispanics. Now, the kind of Catholicism they practice is, all mixed up with the hoodoo, voodoo, bruja.
He's trying so hard.
Nonsense, but it's not in any way a ridiculous thing to say, given that in California, of all places, it was black voters who stopped gay marriage passing. I mean, it's just not a particularly peculiar thing to say. Wouldn't surprise me at all. In fact, one of the reasons that they have to work so hard to get black people into universities is that they don't teach anything that black people actually care about, and one of those is God.
What else do they not care about?
Property rights, bicycle chains, I don't know.
What happens when you die?
That's a good question.
It's a great question. I'd like an answer.
You might find out soon if this event carries on its current trajectory.
What?
One of us
I just
will,
want your
guess.
personal opinion.
What does that mean?
I have no idea, to be honest. It's a thing I don't concern myself with. The way that I view it is that we've got one life on this planet. We've got a bunch of people on this planet. There's going to be people that are come after us. I feel like it's good to kind of put all your efforts into making this life as good as you can for yourself and the people around you. If you want to fixate on an afterlife or wonder what comes after, I think that's fine. But don't make too many sacrifices for a guaranteed life here for a hypothetical, afterlife tomorrow.
In all fairness,
I think we can all see the results.
Who you were when I came here, so just out of curiosity, are you an atheist?
Yeah, I would say so, yeah.
What is nothing?
That's a very challenging question.
A lot of people I've talked to about it say that nothingness is black, right? But that's something, isn't it?
So the challenge of the question is actually in the words that you use to ask the question betray like how complicated a question is. So for instance, when you say, what is it like to experience nothingness? Or what is a thing? Like what is nothingness? Well, the question presupposes a subject that can observe the nothingness. When you ask what is something, you're saying what is it like to observe something? Or what is it like for somebody to observe something?
Such a good answer.
But obviously if there's nothing, there's not an observer there to observe it. So the question is a bit meaningless.
Dude, I'm sorry, man. Like, I don't care how much you don't like Destiny. He's very good at what he does, man. He's very good at what he does. I want to know how to answer that question.
And answer what it's like for somebody not to exist, and then for that non-existent person's subjective experience of nothingness to be. Like, there's no way for me to like meaningfully.
It's like I'd be like, sorry, you asked me something unrelated to war and conflict in the international stage. I don't concern myself with philosophy. Goodbye.
Answer the question.
There's no way for any of us to answer that.
I've been retired too long to understand that.
The answer has been delivered to us a long time ago.
Don't people?
I'm sorry, he went like 3 seconds without talking. So
don't people equate nothingness and black because of darkness, and you can't see things at night? It's pretty simple, isn't it?
It's who? What?
Sorry.
Okay.
Read Kant.
Anyways.
Rowdy crowd.
It's the same reason that up and down have the associations they do with good and evil, because things grow up and die down. It's pretty simple, right?
Well, Destiny, both of you guys have been calling each other terrible names and like being real rude to each other. I never called
him names.
Just to be clear, only in retaliation to him. I came here to play nice tonight. I didn't know he was going to be such a degenerate. Well, I know he's a degenerate, but not in these ways.
No, you didn't.
I just want both of you to know.
I didn't call him any names. It's his behavior I don't like. It's the way that he passes his wife around.
It's the last time I'm sharing a stage with this clown.
He opened up the debate by trying to pile the dead bodies of children on Destiny's doorstep before then making comments about his wife, and then like suggesting that Destiny's trying to make his child gay. He went personal.
Many names. It's his behavior I don't like. It's the way that he passes his wife around.
It's the last time I'm sharing a stage with this clown. Go ahead.
Okay, that's fine. I guess
no more charitable donations to this guy. We can leave that to the 5,000 view ministry stuff he does on YouTube now.
All right.
What were you saying?
Every one of us is a sinner, and you can be saved.
Oh,
the Lord gave his only Son that each one of us can be saved. That's all I have to say.
And it's precisely that. Although I intensely and feverishly despise your life choices, that's precisely the difference between us, because I will go home and pray for you, and you will go home and bitch about me on
he'll certainly go home and get on his knees. He'll certainly do that.
The internet, and that's exactly the difference between
us. You
us.
were literally complaining about me in the bathroom 30 minutes ago, Milo. We can see your Telegram. It's public. You know that, right?
What are you talking about? I just separated the des from the tiny. The des type. That's what I did. Was I complaining from the bathroom?
Milo, if Christianity is what's going to save us from these mass shootings, since, you said that we've turned away from Christianity and that's why the bad things in the news are happening, why do we have so many Christian mass shooters?
Who are the Christian mass shooters? Who? Name one.
The University of Texas shooting, it was a Catholic.
Okay, so...
We didn't think you'd actually have an example.
I have a list.
Neither did I, because the two problems with this, okay? We live in a Christian country and in a Christian tradition.
This is like a public execution. At some oh, dude, man.
Everybody kind of like casually...
I almost feel like it's like it's somehow reversing back to being homophobic because of how much we're bullying this closeted gay man, this semi-closeted gay man, putting it charitably.
Calls himself something, regardless of how committed they were. And I think I heard somebody say, where did he go to mass? And I think what he was getting at was...
Again, Milo Yiannopoulos, perfect case study on who case study at who is and isn't a Christian.
Was this somebody who goes and listens to the gospel in church every Sunday? Pretty sure it wasn't. Everybody kind of like loosely calls themselves Christians in Christian countries, at least until very recently. But aren't there more obvious common denominators between all these shooters than religion? For instance, antidepressant drugs. For instance, ready access to firearms. For instance, maybe even you might say their race and their gender. There's stuff that's like much more of them.
White? It's like white?
In common way before you get to Christianity. No? Like 7 things they have in common, more than they have Christianity in common, don't you think?
I don't think them being white has really anything to do with it. I just think it's that's the demographics of America. But I mean, if we're gonna say race has played a part of it, like the majority of them are white, man. When you look at these school shootings, it's mostly whites. If you look at there's like different types of mass shootings that are committed at a different scale by different races. But when we're talking about the mass shootings we're talking about, which isn't the ones that grab the headlines, are not, you know, the gang related shootings, right? It is the school shootings. It is the shootings in school. And those shootings are overwhelmingly dominated by white shooters. Shootings in schools, hate crime shootings, overwhelmingly dominated by white shooters.
The demographics follow the demographics of the United States. So I don't think there's a common denominator.
So what?
I don't think there's a common denominator between race, gender, whatever.
No, I say the demographics have nothing to do with whether someone's on prescription drugs or not.
What?
You said race.
How many mass shooters were on prescription?
Dude, he doesn't even remember. He doesn't even remember. He doesn't even remember his own point.
Drugs.
Literally all of them.
No.
All of them? Dude, but many of the problems probably came from many of them not being on prescription drugs. This is Milo literally saying, you know, the one thing that might actually bring down the amount of mass shootings in the country, like psychological help, medical help for these people who are going cuckoo. Stop it. Stop it. He's literally tried to add fuel to the fire while throwing dead kids at Destiny.
Yeah. I mean, you can't name one that wasn't on something. I mean, I don't have the list with me. I can certainly pull it up if you want. Every mass shooter has been on something.
That is false. Also, I think it's disgusting that you came here to our state talking about our children that died in a mass shooting as a political point. That is absolutely vile.
I live here. I live here, and I go to church here. Excuse me, ma'am. So pipe down, because I, as a resident of, I have just as much.
Hey, I think you need to pipe.
Excuse me. I have just as
pipe down.
As somebody who lives here, I have just as much standing as you do to talk about the dangers in churches and schools, because I go to.
Well, no, because he tried to enable one of the dangers in churches, and that was the priest trying to diddle the kids. So I mean, he's like the worst representative to talk about dealing with dangers in churches.
To church every Sunday, do you? Because if you don't, I'm at more risk than you are.
No, you aren't.
No, you aren't. What
you are not.
Why am I not at more risk than you are? Can I have an argument instead of petulance? No, I can't. You're leaving. Okay, very good.
Where was the petulance?
Oh, that was indicated by my sarcastic imitation. No, you aren't. That's petulance.
I'm talking.
Then please, where do you go to church, Mom?
I don't go to church.
No, you don't. So if the shootings have happened like quite a lot in churches and synagogues lately, right? Whether it's a right-winger, a left-winger, they're black, they're white, whether they're targeting Christians, they're targeting...
Man, I wonder if, you know, the shooter who shot up the black church, like Dylan Roof, or talking about the Buffalo shooter, I wonder if the rhetoric that Milo Yiannopoulos made during this debate, talking about how only 1% of black people are good, I wonder if that could have contributed. That type of rhetoric could contribute to more racist mass shootings in the future, as he talks about demographics totally not being a factor before making really, really demographics-based arguments on how the vast majority of black people just hate everything.
Jews seems to happen quite a lot in places of religious worship lately. Do you go to synagogue or temple?
No, but
do you go to a mosque?
Do you go to school?
Do you
because it happens at schools a lot.
Yeah, I'm in one now, but you evidently didn't go here.
I
Wait, are we in a school or are we in a convention center right now?
Conference center.
I don't know where we are.
Thank you.
I thought we were at university.
The answer to your question is go to Wikipedia.
Did they not let us on university?
Okay, all the Christian shooters that were mass shooters weren't real Christians. Okay, apparently that's the answer.
Well, I think if you look at the manifestos, you can see what motivates them, and in many cases, it is racially motivated. There's no point denying it. But I don't recall anybody drawing on early church fathers to justify their massacre of children.
Would you say that there is an ethnic bend to Christian nationalism?
Yes.
Okay, so then who's to say that a mass shooter that cites ethnicity for an inspiring factor for why there's a mass shooter, like why would you not say that Christian nationalism might play a role into that?
I think it's a pity that there does seem to be a sort of racial inflection to Christian nationalism. It's not...
Wow, I wonder if the guy saying, again, 1% of black people are good, 99% of them are bad. I wonder why. There's a racial bend.
A dimension of it that I share or care too much about. In my previous life, obviously, I loved and married and settled down with somebody who was not of my own race. And if the people that you choose to hang out with when you don't have to don't establish your racial attitudes, I don't know what would to anyone's satisfaction. So I don't know. I don't love the fact that most of these Christian nationalists seem to be young white guys. But by the same token, I've seen black conservatives and I think we'll stick with what we have for now.
What?
Certainly, I do think it's a responsibility of
What does that even
older
mean?
and better educated Christians and these guys, confessor priests, to remind them that there's no skin color.
I'm just curious, for
in
you
heaven.
personally, if you could choose between 10 million Mexican Catholics coming into this country or 10 million atheist Norwegians.
Well, I'm very racist against Spanish people, so you put me in a bit of a bind. I like blacks, I like whites, I like Asians. I don't love Spaniards, so you put me in a bit of a bind. But I would have to come down on the side of Christians no matter where they're from.
Well, that's good, okay.
Oh, okay, I was having fun. This is a question for Mr. Atentacumpo. I was raised Catholic.
I don't know what that is. You're going to have to explain your Bob. I'm sorry.
No, though I don't really know how to pronounce your last name. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with Greek. My question is, I was raised Roman Catholic. I attended both Latin masses and English language masses up until my sophomore year of college, which was very recently. I have also been a homosexual my entire life. I've been attracted to men. I have had exclusively sex with men. All of my relationships have been with men. And I'm very aware of the fact that these homosexual relationships are a sin according to Catholic doctrine. And I'm wondering if you have practical advice for overcoming these things. I'm not interested in whether or not they're sinful.
Are you sincerely...
I'm completely sincere. I mean...
Because I will have a real conversation with you. It's just that there's been a particular tone this evening, you know, so...
I have been very ironic with you and sarcastic, but this is a completely sincere question.
You can understand why I'm asking.
I totally understand. I mean, we could talk in the bathroom if you'd like, but...
Definitely
I'm interested in actual practical applications. I'm not interested in whether or not
quite a short refractory index from mocking someone to saying you want to have sex with them. All right, look, what the church teaches is not that homosexuality in large part is a cluster of symptoms to early childhood trauma. Whether that trauma is having no male role model to look up to, whether it's the failure to form platonic attachments with, male authority figures, there's a bunch of things that can happen, or sexual assault. You're not responsible for what happens to you, but you are responsible for what you do afterwards and what you do with that. And
but I'm looking for practical advice, day-to-day things.
Sure. Well, then you should. The easiest. The first.
You know why I can't give practical advice is because he's still gay and he just lies. He just lies about it and tries to make other gay people feel bad about being gay, while he still gets plowed by his ex-husband.
Men, isn't that like
the easiest. The first thing.
Men, isn't that like isn't that like the only thing you can say? I mean, what else can you do?
Easier said than done. As my damp pillows will attest. I think that the first thing, look, I'm going to assume that you're being serious, and I'm not going to give you any sort of flippant, frivolous kind of day-to-day whatever. I practiced mortification when I was getting myself out of that. I used hot oil because it's extremely annoying and lasts a really long time, and it kind of like kills any sort of sexual appetite. But the first step before any of that is to figure out why you ended up like this in the first place. Because you weren't born this way. That's sort of 1980s propaganda. There's no gay gene. They would have found it by now.
I'm sorry, mortification? What? He said he used hot oil? What does that mean?
One of the aspects of religion I find to be most fascinating is religious asceticism. Why does being religious motivate things like self-denial and mortification of the flesh? William James, in his book The Varieties of Religious Experience, tries to categorize religious experiences according to their value. Some seem to be very healthy and do people a lot of good, but some are clearly pathological, and he argues that the most extreme manifestations of asceticism are an example of the pathological variety of experience. James quotes the Spanish mystic St. John of the Cross, who says, "If anything agreeable offers itself to your senses, yet does not at the same time tend purely to the honor and glory of God, renounce it and separate yourself from it for the love of Christ, who all his life long had no other taste or wish than to do the will of his Father, whom he called..."
That sounds terrible.
his meat and nourishment. Let your soul therefore
Oh, you want to play a video game? Does it glorify God? Nope, bye. No stalker for you.
turn always, not to what is most easy, but to what is hardest. Not to what tastes, not
So what is
to
mortification?
Someone else's autobiography written in the third person. Fair warning, this gets a bit gross. He was in his youth of a temperament full of fire and
Where do we have mortification?
twist round and round in agony as a worm does when run through with a pointed needle. The nights in winter were never so long, nor the summer so hot, as to make him leave off this exercise. On the contrary, he devised something farther, 2 leathern loops into which he put his hands and fastened one on each side his throat, and made the fastening so secure that even if his cell had been on fire about him, he could not have helped himself. In winter, he suffered very much from the frost. If he stretched out his feet, they lay bare on the floor and froze. If he gathered them up, the blood became all on fire in his legs, and this was great pain. His feet were full of sores, his legs dropsical, his
dog. This is crazy. I don't even want to know. It sounds like he wanted to torture. He tortured himself. He burns himself with hot oil to stop himself from having sex with men. He is insane. He is insane. He is trying to tell other people how to live his life, how to live their lives, to deny themselves pleasure, and instead is offering them self-mutilation. This is the same person who was mocking people for chopping off their dicks earlier, saying that about the trans people, and while he's literally just literally mutilating himself for the purpose of just mutilating himself. My goodness, man. He actually needs help.
Now we have mapped the genome. It's not there.
The idea is that you associate the homosexual thoughts with extreme pain. Acreal, thanks for the 100 bits. This is the thing. This is conversion therapy. The torture part of conversion therapy, he literally just described it.
Something was done to you, or something was not provided for you. And one or both of those things happened, which produced these feelings. And if you want to get right with God, the first step is to find out what it was, because you might not know and you might not remember. The best place to go for that is a therapist who was trained by any of the sort of descendants of the Joseph Nicolosi school. So Joe Nicolosi is kind of like the sort of godfather of, they call it reparative therapy now. And his son is still active and they still train therapists. And within quite a short space of time, they will help you to find an answer. And there are a variety of therapies that look to the observer extremely funny, that nonetheless do work, and I'll let you discover what some of those are for yourself. But there's a path out if you want it. Almost everybody.
The only actual specific instruction he gave was self-harm. To be clear, he was like, what should I do if I don't want to be gay? And he was literally like, burn yourself.
They can reach celibacy if they are sincerely committed to it. And the numbers vary from like 10 to 20% people who successfully manage to enter into a relationship with a woman, have an active sexual life, and have children. Somewhere between 1 in 10 and 1 in 5.
I'm sorry, is celibacy the best case scenario for a homosexual?
For a lot of people, yeah.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Vosh.
Same joke.
Again.
Hey, Destiny. So you had a great talk with the Muslim extremist Quarantos.
Okay, I'm done. I can't watch this anymore. Okay, you guys okay with me being done with this? Okay. You guys, there's nothing left here. All of this is terrible. I can't watch any more of this. It's all garbage. Okay.